So I'm going to set my project to my Maya project. I've created a project folder just called Maya. I had copied the OBJ files that I had exported from ZBrush into a new folder. So I'm importing an OBJ. I'm going to go under Scenes, go to the current module, and I'm going to import the low poly first. Now this came in with all sorts of splits and things like that, but it came in as a single object. If you are importing an OBJ and you open up the settings, set it to OBJ, and at the bottom of these import options, specify that you want this imported as a single object. Save it and close, and then go ahead and import your object in. The default is going to import it in as multiple objects, and it's going to split it up. You don't want that to happen, so bring it in as a single object. As you can see, the pins are really high poly, and this is too high poly. I'm going to go ahead and recreate those eventually, but I just want to start examining this based off of the results that we had from before, and just kind of take a look at the way things were constructed. It's a little bit easier to select edge loops in here, especially if I just want a single bevel between some of these. These edge loops are going to be pretty easy to select and delete. Just double clicking. I'm holding shift as I double click. So I just get flat bevels. Get these two here. So we have one face there. Because this is more of a plastic piece, or it's a piece that's been designated as having a little bit of a thicker edge to it, as well as this piece, different from this. And having triangles there on, a single bevel is going to be acceptable. Because again, this is low poly. Low poly can be mostly quads, some tris in areas. It's going to be triangles when we get into creating booleans for some of these objects. With these rings, they're pretty much going to stay as is. We're just going to have to, set their hard and soft edges. The first place I'm going to start is getting the core and these upper and lower regions set up. Shift right, select all those faces and extract them out. It may take a second. You're going to get the poly chip off option. You can go ahead and exit out of that. Now, when you do that, this loaded in a bunch of material references. We can delete those. These are material sets that are empty. It's probably based off of poly painting. When you go ahead and extract things, it creates a group transform node, and the first objects that are in that group are the extracted ones. The bottom one is going to be whatever's left. So just keep that in mind. So what I tend to do is I'll grab that group node and then I'll ungroup the whole thing, so I don't need that, and then I can delete history as well, and that'll delete any top level nodes. Keeps things pretty clean. So these three, we know that these have been Boolean together in ZBrush, and I'd like to stick with that since it's just keeping things consistent between the objects. So you can go up to Mesh, Booleans, and Union. If you want to, we can work on a duplicate of this as well. So why don't we follow suit with what we were doing in ZBrush, group these together, and just call this low poly work, and then we can duplicate it. And we'll hide this. Control H. I'm going to take this, this, and this. Mesh, Booleans, Union. This is going to be the easiest one that you do because they had the same number of subdivisions around their axis. So there were edge loops lining right up with each of them. If you look inside, anything that was intersecting is now gone. There shouldn't be any any changes in terms of the points. It looks like there might be a little bit. That's going to be really easy to merge because the threshold is so small on those. So just go ahead and select those, shift and right click, merge vertices, merge them, and your default threshold is 1%. That should work. If it doesn't, get a larger threshold. We now have a Boolean surface and we have the older surfaces. So let's go ahead and delete that history because we now have this left. And I'm just going to keep extracting things out of here and then creating more Booleans to things that I know are brought together. The other two objects that we know are together are this upper ring and the body. And notice that I didn't do everything all together in one shot. That's usually, you have to really know that things are set up correctly. This is set up really well, but it's better to do this one thing at a time just to make sure that your methods are sound. Let's extract this out. And we've got a little subgroup down in here. Select it, ungroup it, delete the history, and that clears it out. So everything's under this main group, but we still have what was extracted and what's left. If you want to, you can pull that out of there just to pull it right down to there. So we've got this and we've got that. I'm going to go to Mesh, Booleans, Union. You can go ahead and delete the history. Merge those vertices. And that's nice and clean right there. You can tell that most of these objects up in here, these are as they need to be. There isn't really any difficult work ahead of us with those. They're all pretty straightforward. The screws themselves that go in, those are as they need to be. We're probably going to delete some faces on the inside of those. The rings, those are going to be basically as they are. The other object that we need to work on getting a nice Boolean with are these struts, ribs, these supports, whatever term you want to use for them. Select these, extract them out. And because they're separate pieces of mesh, they're going to chip off into separate objects. So we can select our marking menu, and go to Combine, which is Mesh and Combine, which is right there. I'm going to delete the history on that as well. So now we can Boolean this with this, and you can tell that, okay, this is not going to be as clean of a Boolean because things are looking a little bit, we've got some stuff that's right on top of another thing, goes right below it. It's not going to be really as clean, but we do want these to be together. We want them to be contiguous because of the work that was done digitally sculpting. If we've created any beads, seams of weld points or anything like that between these. And I saved out a version of this before we're going to go ahead and Boolean this last piece together, because this is pretty straightforward work here in the core that we don't want to have to do again. So it's good to save things at a point like that. You've got it all together. It's nice and clean. But this is a point of departure where we're going to start to Boolean things that are not as easy, and they're going to take a little bit of modeling work around these transition points. So there's your A object, there's your B object. Go to Mesh, Booleans, Union. The creation of it is pretty clean. There's not too much to worry about in terms of how these objects are meeting together. It's just a matter of getting these faces where they've met, and some of these transition points to be as flush as possible, merged together. We've got n-gons now right in here and in here. Now we're inside the object, so you can see these n-gons. Got an n-gon there and in there. There's things that can be merged together, transitions that we don't really need. So what we need to start to do is model these transitions, get them triangulated, delete things where needed, and just get these transitions to look a little bit smoother.